Every month you wait to own your own home, it costs you thousands.
Really?
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward together with the Dekker team.
Welcome to another episode of Life's Inside Track. I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And it's where we get to share techniques, thoughts, tips, tools, tactics, and some truths that we all need, we all deserve. So we can turn our house into home, our families thrive, we get to live the best life possible, and even build wealth through real estate. Today, we're going to consider that even though it's the right time to buy your first home, many people are waiting. Why?
Well, Yetta, I think partially they're discouraged. It's harder and harder to save a down payment. You know, inflation's hit us after COVID, and we've, just wages haven't kept pace with inflation. And it's just tougher for people to stick away some money every time.
So just the saving the down payment alone, even though it's only 5% now.
Exactly.
And, what's fascinating is until 1992, there wasn't even a pilot project. There wasn't even an opportunity for people to only have 5% down. Mm-hmm. We had to have minimum 10% down. And then in 99, it became carte blanche, whether you're a first-time buyer or not. If you qualified, obviously, you could then get a mortgage with only 5% down. So that conversation has only really been 25 years.
Yeah.
That was even possible. And so we have to save a lot less than historically. Mm-hmm. And yet it's really hard to save the 5%. Why?
Well, I think consumerism. People want to have the lifestyle that maybe their parents, if they're baby boomers, maybe,
the parents were baby boomers.
Yeah. And they want to have the lifestyle that their parents had, but they haven't put in the time that their parents have. And we're going to go through some stats, and we're going to see that, houses were a lot less in comparison to your annual salary in the past. Now, interest rates were different, but
much higher.
Yeah. But the point is, housing costs have outpaced income increases as well. So we're going to discuss all those things. And that's making it tougher for people to make that decision, because they'll go rent a nicer place because they can't afford to buy. So they're buying later and later. Some of them, the average now is
36 years old
for the first house.
And I mean, I'm sure people that bought their first house at 20 and at 22, and we've just helped several young couples that are like barely 20 that have bought their first home already. And so those people are bringing the average down. But even with it, we also helped a family not long ago, and she was basically in her early 60s and just bought her first house.
Right.
And so 36 now is the average. And just 3 years ago, the average was 33. And when we were buying our first home, I mean, it was in the early 20s.
Yeah. And I think also people are waiting longer to have children.
Yes.
So the need for housing maybe isn't quite as strong. And also they're loving that lifestyle they have. No children, no house, no tie downs. They're just, it's a different era. And what's important to know is that Toronto Dominion Bank posted a thing the other day, and it said that homeowners are 700% more wealthy on average than renters are.
And that's not just the money tied up, and that's not just the money they've earned in their house.
But most of it is.
A fair bit of it.
Yeah.
And strategically, though, or statistically, because we've done so much research over the last while, because we just finished having the Building Wealth Wisely workshop. So we certainly put a lot of effort into making sure what we know is backed by research and stats and data. And that is, they tend to be, homeowners, better savers, not only savers in their house, but overall.
Yeah, and they tend to sometimes be higher income earners because they can afford to buy a house. But really, the housing part is what's driving their net worth, because housing's going up significantly faster and it's leveraged, right? You put a certain amount down, you put 5% down, and suddenly the 95% is going up in value and you haven't paid for it yet.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how they're outpacing, when houses were going up, in the last 10 years, house prices have doubled. Salaries haven't even come anywhere close to doubling in the last 10 years.
Which is part of the reason for the delay.
Right. And that keeps separating those that rent and those that own further and further apart because of the way housing. And you know what? It's not going to get better. Housing affordability is not getting better. CMHC says we have to make 500,000 homes a year to make housing affordable again by 2030, the year 2030. 500,000 a year. Now, there's only been 1 year we've made more than 250,000. And you don't
mean you personally, you mean
in Canada.
Canada wide.
Right. And this year we're going to be like 232. So we're 50% under what we need to build. And it's going to continue. The building's not going to accelerate to 500,000 overnight. We don't have the trades. We don't have the supplies. We don't have the land developed. We don't have anything. And therefore, affordability is not going to increase.
Right. We're not going to get there.
Right.
Not anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the reason for the delay
Mm-hmm.
of people buying?
Well, it's the incentive why they shouldn't be delaying.
Okay. I wanted to wrap my brain around how that data, although highly interesting and valuable, how that causes people to wait.
Mm-hmm.
It's why you ought not wait.
Yeah. And now I've got to interrupt you because there is something special coming November 20th. We are bringing in the ultimate sales machine, and we're doing a workshop, a boot camp, whatever you want to call it, where we're going to work with you. If you are a salesperson, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in charge of a sales department or you're a manager, this workshop boot camp is for you. And it's November 20th. So mark that on your calendar. You don't want to miss it. It's a full day. You will leave with a plan and things that you can implement the next day. Like we're going to create the content for tomorrow.
Absolutely. And it's based on the book. Like the spoiler alert is pre-read the book before the event. The Ultimate Sales Machine. It's a multi-million times seller. It has been translated into, I think, 20 languages now, but it is incredible. And we're actually going to have the co-author of the book in Ottawa for the first time. Mm-hmm. Which is shocking and amazing, and we can't believe we get to do this thing. And there's limited space. Mm-hmm. So,
yep. And then really back on the subject here is that prices of homes have gone up. Back in the early 54s, a house was half the price of the average salary.
No, about the same almost, right?
No, it
was half. You're right, it was half.
The income was 22 and the average price of a home was 12,000. Mm-hmm. Now homes have gotten a little larger, but still it's going up and up and up to the point where today 5 times a person's average salary in the Ottawa area to buy a home at 654,000,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So really the reason for the delays are your own. Like think about what your reasons are and then decide whether they really weren't a delay.
Yeah. And are you willing to settle for less house, less toys to get into the owning your first home now? We're honored to be positioning you to build wealth wisely because it's about much more than just money.
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward